Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 321 of the FCPA Compliance Report. The FCPA Compliance Report is sponsored by Advanced Compliance Solutions, your one-stop shop for all things compliance related. I'm pleased to announce a new service offering from Advanced Compliance Solutions. It is the Compliance Alliance, which is a 3-step program that will provide you and your sales team a background into compliance in the FCPA so you can consider how your product or service fits the needs of a compliance practitioner, compliance professional, or chief compliance officer. It includes a boot camp around your service and product, a podcast series, and in-person training. Interested parties should contact Tom Fox at tfoxlaw.com. Today I have with me Adelle Elia. Adelle is the Chief Integrity Officer at Louis Berger. This is really the first time I can remember a compliance position has evolved to Chief Compliance Officer. For those who follow my writings and thought leadership, you know I advocate that we are at Compliance 3.0 and indeed Chief Compliance Officer 3.0. Adelle really explains this well in the context of her work at Louis Berger. She explains the role of a Chief Integrity Officer as opposed to a Chief Compliance Officer or even a Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer. She explains how her role is different than other organizations, at other organizations. She talks about some of the specific initiatives she and the company have around integrity. She talks about how not only Louis Berger, but a Chief Integrity Officer helped drive the values and culture in her organization. She gives some specific compliance and integrity initiatives that she and the company have or are developing. And finally, she talks about her journey through the compliance profession with her academic background as a mathematician. Quite interesting. The episode comes in at around 20 minutes. This is Tom Fox. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the FCPA Compliance Report. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the FCPA Compliance Report. Today, you are in for a very interesting podcast as I have Adelle Elia, the new, she will tell us the title, but I think it's the Chief Integrity Officer of Louis Berger. So, Adelle, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. Great to be here.
So, Adelle, could you tell us where you are now, why the title of Chief Integrity Officer, and kind of what your journey was to get there?
Sure, happy to. So I just joined Louis Berger about 4 weeks ago. And as you pointed out, a slightly unusual title, Chief Integrity Officer. And that was a very conscious decision by Louis Berger to reflect something that's been going on with their program for a while. So I think I could probably share a little bit from the history of the program.
Great.
Kind of point out where we got to today. The Louis Berger program really started out like almost all programs do. There was an outside need. We started really focusing on compliance, and this was many, many years ago. And then as the program got more sophisticated, we began to understand more about values-based behaviors, values-based messaging, and so kind of went into that secondary evolution of a compliance and ethics program, where we started to think a lot about equipping people to make good ethical decisions. But I think Louis Berger's got actually to a third phase now, where I'm very happy to see the industry, I think, is also getting to. But Berger has been here for a while, which is it's all about culture. It's all about how people think. It's about how values influence what they do every day. And so, we got to this idea of Chief Integrity Officer because, integrity is one of our core values. And what we've done in the past with the Compliance and Ethics program is look to shape that, to help people with that. But we've never explicitly said, this is the reason the compliance program exists, the ethical factors of the program. It's all about honoring that value and equipping people to operate in alignment with that value, being a resource for that. So, Louis Berger is now at the stage where they are going to make that message resonate in the title of the person who's leading the program. It's not just about compliance and ethics. It's really about that connection. We want all of our employees to know that. So this happened to be an opportune time, but it's as I come into the program. But it's really a reflection of something that's been underpinning this program for several years. And I'm just very lucky to have joined the program as this is unfolding.
Adelle, could you perhaps share what the business of Louis Berger is for those who might not know that listening to this podcast?
Sure. Louis Berger is an international company. We have operations in many countries throughout the globe. We have a sector, our international division, which does a lot of professional services, a number of different types of functions. We do international development, we do construction, we do civil engineering, a whole range of services in that suite. We also have a presence in the U.S., which works a lot with U.S. government contracts, some here and some OCONUS overseas. And so that's kind of a perspective on the overall program. We have an initiative in transportation. We do a number of things in that area. We have a history with some very exciting projects, bridges, highways all across the world, and about 50% of our business comes from that.
Where's the company headquartered?
The company's headquartered in Morristown, New Jersey. And then we have international operations in London, headquartered in London.
And so if I have written about and thought about and talked about compliance and CCO 3.0, and it really seems that you and Louis Berger have taken this concept and put it into practice, put it into a business practice by having your title be not simply your title be Chief Integrity Officer, but actually having it be about corporate culture. It sounds like really from the top all the way through the organization. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that excited me about joining Louis Berger is I think we're leading edge here. We have, put together not only the kind of traditional compliance and ethics program, but we have some extraordinary innovations where we really are looking at influencing culture, connecting on a very human, interpersonal level with our employees. And a number of the elements of the program we have taken from, I think, what would have been, maybe best practices, consistent with what a lot of organizations do, and move them forward. So, for example, in our, we have a very centralized organization. It reports up to the audit committee. And so our line is very much aligned to make sure we have independence. We have leaders in our geographic locations who have different experience and expertise related to the risk in those locations. And then those individuals have applied what they're bringing to really create some unique or leading edge practices. We have some new training, and in the training, not only have we incorporated the concepts and the values piece, but also we have done things like include audience polling technology, which is obviously very popular now with something that helps people really connect to the message. In some of our other operations, for example, in our U.S. operation, some of the folks that we have in the program have real life on the ground experience. Like our U.S. leader has spent many years working in Afghanistan. So when she talks to employees about how do you connect values to business decisions, she has a complete understanding of the difficulty and the complexity of the business decisions they're trying to make. So by bringing in those expertise areas and those innovative ideas, we really are reaching out to employees in I think, a new way that's oriented toward, really getting inside how people's, hearts operate, what they believe, what they feel, and not just equipping them, with knowledge.
One of the things I thought I heard you say in that, Adelle, was really a 360-degree view of communication, not simply compliance, ethics, culture, and integrity from the top down, but also innovation from the bottom up, so that someone like yourself as the Chief Integrity Officer can take advantage of a wide variety of talents and skills across your organization to help you make your compliance program more effective and, to use the current buzzword, operationalize it. Would that be fair?
That is absolutely fair. One of the things that we have underway right now, we've established and had for some time a compliance champions program. So we identify people in the field who can be advocates for the program. We give them training. We give them a set of roles and responsibilities to fulfill. But this is really people who are participating in the culture in whatever location they are in. They have another job as well as filling the role of compliance champion. So it really is integrated into everyday conversations, business meetings they might have. And it's not about a compliance officer being present. It's just a compliance champion is in the room.
Does Louis Berger have a mechanism by which it salutes, honors, applauds, or in any other way celebrates employees who engage in extraordinary efforts around culture and integrity and values?
We do. We have an ethical hero program. So our program is oriented around individuals being recognized for, basically an act of ethics, a piece of conduct. And that's the newest program that we had just rolled out. We also have had for several years a program, our Values Awards. And so we honor individuals who have exemplified one of our values. And in some cases, we really leave quite a lot of room around what that might mean. So our integrity value, the awards we've given over the past years have really varied in terms of what that means. There's the individuals who have won that award have won it for all different sorts of things. One person raised a flag at the right time to help protect Louis Berger. One person just showed outstanding commitment to another employee and the family of another employee that went through a very difficult time. And so what integrity means is really unique to those individuals, but we feel like when we recognize someone for something like that, we're kind of going back to what that core value really is about at Louis Berger.
On the company website, it says under the compliance and ethics toolbar that Louis Berger understands our clients and partners expect us to perform project work in areas where the risk of corruption is high, meeting all applicable anti-corruption legislation and delivering high-quality professional projects. Is this type of standard you've set for yourself, or rather the company set for itself, really a market differentiator that you feel is a business positive?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question that the social science research about how people behave and how you affect culture, the business research that ties ethical behavior and principled performance is a phrase that's been used, and the way that you drive that and connect that as an organization managing it is by inspiring people, by connecting to values, by connecting to their core beliefs. And so I think it's definitely going to be the case that we'll be ahead of the game, I think, because culturally we have such sensitivity and awareness to this. And we're leading edge when it comes to actually understanding that you really have to be looking at how you manage that. That's not something that you should leave unmanaged. As a business seeking success for the long term, one of the most important things you should do is understand how you're going to manage your culture and create an organization where individuals do the right thing and individuals are committed to it, and also that they know how to handle difficult decisions in the context of the company's values.
Do you have any social media type or like tools that you utilize internally around your compliance and integrity function?
We don't currently have any. I happened to be speaking to our head of communications earlier today about what our options are for doing that. We'll be launching next year some programs that we think will be able to allow us to do that. We also obviously have a public presence, but we're looking to how we can deploy that internally. We have a very geographically diverse organization. And part of our commitment is how do we make sure that our programs are designed, that we may pilot them in some geographies, but then we can make sure that our full employee base gets the benefit of them.
The public-facing role that you have and that culture has within your organization, do you also expect that from your direct contractors and subcontractors who do business with you?
We do. We have a very robust due diligence program. We have a number of tools that allow us to enable our subcontractors and the folks that work with us to not only understand what we believe about ourselves, but what we expect of them. We have a number of processes in place for how we look at business partners, business intermediaries to get the right fit.
So could I ask, in terms of your position, do you feel, or how do you feel that your position is either resourced or authority within the organization? So for instance, do you report to the board of directors, and do you have the authority as the chief integrity officer that you think that title warrants?
Yes, I report directly to the board of directors. So that I think is really, it's a best practice and a necessary practice. I think that it's important for the head of the compliance and ethics program, whoever that is, to have that independent line. But I'm also a member of the senior management team. So I participate in the senior management meetings, and I'm a member of I take part in the conversations that the business has around the business itself. So it's not a sideline function. That independence is preserved, but at the same time, I am part of the organization that is helping drive the strategy for the whole company. And I think the other side of that is that those business leaders are also advocates of the culture. So a key factor for us is how do we enable leaders to make take those moments where they can interject compliance, ethics, messaging into the work that we do. We have a program called Ethics Moments. So every week we have a topic that's circulated throughout the organization. And as business leaders kick off meetings, they start off with an ethics moment and a safety moment, where we prepare them with some material. Obviously, if they want to go speak about something more unique to their business line that week, they're able to. But it allows them to be kind of prepared with some talking points that they can use to model that behavior and start those conversations with their team.
So I had the chance to review your LinkedIn profile, and I really wanted to ask you about your academic background and how that prepared you, or at least even led you into what's now the Chief Integrity Officer position at Louis Berger. So you have a BS in mathematics and physics. Is that correct?
I do. I started out my career thinking that I was going to be a mathematician. And I came out of university not really expecting to go into ethics and compliance, but I think for many of us who have been in the industry for a few years, we didn't start out here. We all started out somewhere different. I ended up not long after that working for a bank, initially in IT audit, and that was my first kind of crossover from technology into more maybe a governance space. I spent a few years doing that. I then spent some time in cybersecurity. Had a great experience there. The audit and cybersecurity experience, I think, taught me a lot about changing environments, changing technology. Both of those industries, as I worked in them, were undergoing a huge amount of change. I then moved into a period of time when I did business process management. So that was very much about
Operationalizing?
Operationalizing, thank you. The elements of a number of different areas. And I really got interested at that point in time in how you affect change in an organization, how people's behavior is influenced by their values and their beliefs. And I happened to then be in an organization who found themselves in some difficulty. They ended up with an administrative agreement. And when they sourced internally looking for someone to kind of launch or relaunch their compliance and ethics program, they happened to find someone who had both that combination of the audit background, which I know a number of compliance people have, and then a number of years understanding the business side of things. So I moved into that role, and that was, for me, a magic moment because I think I found the profession that I belonged in after starting out in a slightly different direction.
Absolutely. So quite an interesting journey. And as someone who is a lawyer and came from the General Counsel's chair, I appreciate having a non-lawyer perspective in that position. It just brings a wide range of different skills that certainly I learned in my academic career. Could you describe?
And I find that the relation.
Go ahead.
I think I was just going to say the one thing I find also is that, certainly the compliance function and legal function spend a lot of time together and working on issues, and it can be very helpful for us to have that dialogue where there's a few different perspectives on the table, and it allows us to look at things through slightly different lenses. So often bringing either the business background or audit background adds more to that discussion.
Could you describe, you're the Chief Integrity Officer. Do you have an integrity function, or is it named something else? Could you describe just the structure of that organization for you?
Sure. The function is called the Office of Compliance and Ethics. The function is staffed by compliance officers and compliance analysts. We base the number of people we need and the locations based on where we have a high presence and where we have high risk. And then we kind of align it geographically. So we have compliance officers specifically for different geographies. and they focus their efforts on understanding the risks in those geographies, getting to know the business in those geographies, and they are the immediate contact point for our business leaders in those areas with respect to training issues or anything that comes up. So we've used basically a geographic model, and then we work very closely within the team to make sure that we have a good, solid base of expertise. So we have folks who have different types of backgrounds, some very business-oriented, some investigation-oriented or training-oriented, so that we bring all those different skill sets to the team as well.
Now, one of the things that many compliance practitioners struggle with is around the issue of either incentives or disincentives, or incentives and discipline. I think they understand what discipline is if you violate a code of conduct or other internal rule or regulation, or even the FCPA, but they struggle with incentives. So you've talked about values, awards, and ethical heroes. Has Louis Berger been able to incorporate any type of compensation incentive into the overall structure of your program?
We do have. We have it within our performance appraisal process. There are some elements related to ethics and compliance. That is something that we actually very recently had taken another look at. So I think there'll be opportunity for us to look at that again and refine it more and more. But part of the performance appraisal elements that we look at are around our corporate values and behaviors that align with that.
Adelle, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time, but I was wondering if there's anything that I haven't asked you about that you might want to highlight for the audience.
I think for us, the main thing that I'd love to share is that the evolution of our program has really been a journey that we started out very much in a compliance journey, and that now really we're thinking about culture, and we're thinking about how do we manage and evolve our culture over time. And to the extent that anyone else is thinking about that or exploring that, I think it offers a great deal of opportunity for a compliance and ethics professional, but it also is very close to, I think, the hearts of many of us. I think as a whole, this discipline is full of people who are very passionate and committed, and they really believe in doing the right thing. And that sense is really what integrity is. So the more that we brand ourselves as champions of integrity, I think the more we're even true to what many of the individuals in this profession are all about.
And then I was wondering if anyone wanted to contact you about either the Louis Berger program or what you've talked about in this podcast. Could they email you? And if so, how would be the best way to do that?
They absolutely could. And I would say probably the easiest one to remember is ethics@louisberger.com. And if you email there, it'll definitely get to me, but we can also, our whole team will look at it, and anything we can share, we'd be happy to.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. Your new position and new title have really, I think, generated a lot of excitement in the greater compliance community. And as we move to values, ethics, and culture, and indeed integrity, I think both you and Louis Berger will continue to be a leader for many of us to model ourselves after. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
This is Tom Fox again. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of the FCPA Compliance Report. If you have listened to this podcast on iTunes, I would greatly appreciate it if you would rate us, as it would help our rankings and also help spread the word of this offering in the Compliance Podcast Network. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. This is Tom Fox. Thank you very much for joining me in this episode, and I hope you will join me for our next episode of the FCPA